All right, let's get right into a real medical mystery. It's a weird case, right? Involving your eyesight, cholesterol, the stuff we're always hearing about, and a culprit that nobody saw coming. This is a story that's completely flipping the script on what we thought we knew about a major threat to our vision. And look, the stakes here are incredibly high. The condition we're talking about is age-related macular degeneration, or AMD for short. It is the leading cause of irreversible blindness for older folks in the developed world. And when that sight is gone, well, it's gone for good. There's no getting it back. So this is where the whole mystery really kicks off. For years, I mean decades, the main idea was that AMD was basically like heart disease, but in your eye. Clogged arteries, It sounds logical, right? But the evidence just wasn't adding up. Because, get this, in our story, the thing that's supposed to be the hero for your heart, that good HDL cholesterol, might actually be the villain. Okay, so let's properly introduce the victim in this whole drama, the macula. It's this tiny little spot at the back of your eye, but it's a huge deal. It's what lets you do everything. Read a book, see the faces of people you love, all the sharp central vision we rely on. And AMD, it's just this slow, constant attack on these incredibly important cells.
Now, every good detective story has a key piece of evidence, right? At this crime scene, the smoking gun is something called drusen. Picture these as tiny yellow spots, and they're made of lipids, which is just a fancy word for fats and cholesterol. They build up right under the retina. And for years, scientists saw these fatty deposits and thought, aha, case closed. This has got to be just like clogged arteries in the heart.
This really lays out the two competing ideas, the central conflict of our story. On one side, you've got the simple, obvious theory. Bad cholesterol from your blood is gunking up your eye. Makes sense. But then you look at the emerging reality, and wow, it's so much weirder and more complicated. It's pointing to a problem that's not systemic at all. It's a local problem, like a tiny garbage strike happening right inside your eye. And that's when things start to get really paradoxical. So that old theory has a name, the response to retention model. And it's actually super straightforward. Step 1, fatty stuff gets trapped. Step 2, that trapped fat goes bad. It oxidizes. Think of it like metal rusting or butter going rancid. Step 3, this toxic gunk kicks off an inflammatory response that just never quits, slowly damaging everything around it. And here's the kicker. This is the exact same story we tell about heart disease. So you'd think, okay, case closed. It's heart disease of the eye. But nope, not even close. When researchers started to really look at the numbers, that neat and tidy theory just completely fell apart. The evidence was, to put it mildly, a total mess. And here's the first huge crack in that old theory. You can see it right in the data. That bad LDL cholesterol, public enemy number one in heart disease, the link between it and AMD is, well, it's weak. It's inconsistent. But the link with good HDL cholesterol, oh, that one's strong, all right, and it's completely, totally backwards. And this really gets to the heart of the problem. Researchers literally named it the HDL paradox because study after study consistently kept finding the same baffling thing. Higher levels of the one cholesterol we're all told to raise for our hearts was linked to a higher risk of developing AMD. It makes no sense, right? So for a long time, this paradox just stumped everyone. But very recently, we got an answer. And it turns out the old way of thinking high is good, low is bad is just wrong here. It's more like a Goldilocks situation. As you can see, both too low and too high HDL increase your risk by about the same amount. There's this perfect sweet spot right in the middle. It tells us that the eye is incredibly sensitive. It needs perfect balance, and if you stray too far in either direction, you're in trouble. And all of this leads to a huge aha moment. The reason the cholesterol in your blood is such a bad predictor for this disease is because the problem isn't in your blood. It's not about the burger you ate last week. The problem is local. It starts and it ends right there inside the eye. So let's meet our real culprit, a layer of cells just one cell thick called the retinal pigment epithelium, or RPE. You have to understand, these cells are the metabolic workhorses of the eye. They are buzzing with energy, their metabolic rate is off the charts. Why? Because their main job is to be the janitor and recycling plant for your photoreceptors, the cells that actually see light. Every single day, they have to process this enormous load of fatty waste. And as we get older, well, They just get tired. They can't keep up with the trash collection, and that garbage starts to pile up. And this is what kicks off a terrible, vicious cycle. First, the garbage disposal system in the RPE cells breaks down. Then, that trapped fatty garbage turns toxic. But here's the really critical part. Those toxic lipids then go on the attack. They actively sabotage the eye's immune system. They find a protein called complement factor H, which is basically the brake pedal for inflammation, and they cut the brake lines. So with no brakes, inflammation just runs rampant, which causes more damage to the RPE cells, and the cycle just spins faster and faster. Okay, now the genetic clues are where this story gets really wild, and it proves this is a local problem. Check this out. There's a gene called APOE. For Alzheimer's disease in the brain, the APOE4 version is bad news, a major risk factor. And the APOE2 version is protective. Got it? Okay, now throw that all out the window because in the eye, it's the complete opposite. The APOE2 version is the risk factor for AMD, and the APOE4 version is protective. It's just stunning. And it's the ultimate proof that this isn't about your whole body. It's about how well these specific eye cells are taking out their own trash. Genetics also helps us finally crack that HDL paradox. So look at this. There are different genes that can raise your HDL. One gene, CETP, if you have a certain version, it raises your HDL, but it also increases your risk for AMD. But then there's another gene, LIPC. A version of this gene also raises your HDL, but it decreases your risk. What does that tell us? It's not how much HDL you have, it's about the type of HDL, the quality of the particle. Not all good cholesterol is created equal, at least, not for the eye. Which, of course, brings us to the biggest question of all, the final piece of the puzzle. If lipids and cholesterol are so involved, why on earth did statins, our #1 cholesterol-busting drug, fail over and over and over again in clinical trials for AMD? Well, it turns out we were asking the wrong question and running the wrong experiments. The old way of thinking was, use low to moderate doses, assume you're just trying to lower blood cholesterol, and treat every patient the same. But the new thinking is a total game changer. It says you need high doses, that the real benefit has nothing to do with blood cholesterol and everything to do with fighting inflammation locally, in the eye. And, this is the most important part, it only works if you have the right genetic profile. And that dose really seems to be the key. The first glimmer of hope came from these small pilot studies where they used a really high dose of a statin, 80 milligrams. And for the first time, they saw a real effect. The drusen, those fatty deposits, actually started to shrink. Some patients even got a little bit of their vision back, a huge deal. But this is the slide that cracks the whole case wide open. Remember that inflammation brake pedal we talked about, CFH? Well, it turns out the statins only seem to work for people who have a faulty version of that gene. If you have the high-risk gene, the one with the bad brakes, and you take a statin, your risk of progressing plummets by 35%. But if you have the normal, low-risk gene, taking a statin does absolutely nothing, no benefit at all. So that brings it all together. The big takeaway is this. Statins don't treat AMD by lowering cholesterol in your blood. That was never the point. They seem to be working as a powerful anti-inflammatory, but only for people whose own genetic brakes are broken. They step in to control the inflammation that was caused by all that local lipid garbage in the first place. It connects all the dots. So, after this whole detective story, we're left with a really powerful idea. We've just picked apart a super complex disease, and the solution wasn't some one-size-fits-all pill. It was the right drug at the right dose for people with the right genes. It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Is this the future of medicine? A future where it's not just about the drugs in our medicine cabinet, but about understanding our own personal genetic blueprint to know which ones will actually work for us.